What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks into what should be a routine interview and finds himself face-to-face with a host who seems determined to tear him down? What happens when professionalism meets provocation, and when cool composure clashes with calculated confrontation? You're about to witness one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history, where Michael B. Jordan's visit to The View turned into a battlefield that nobody saw coming. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think about celebrity interview drama, because trust me, you're going to have plenty to say after hearing what went down. The morning started like any other at the View Studios in New York City. The familiar buzz of pre-show energy filled the air as producers skewered around making final adjustments to lighting and sound equipment. Michael B. Jordan had arrived early, as was his custom. Looking sharp in a tailored navy suit that complemented his confident demeanor, he had been invited to discuss his latest film project, a passion piece about social justice that had been gaining critical acclaim and awards season buzz. It was supposed to be a straightforward promotional appearance, the kind of interview he had done hundreds of times before. But from the moment he stepped onto the set, something felt different. The usual warm greetings from the production staff seemed more reserved, almost nervous. There were hushed conversations happening in corners, and when he asked his publicist about the interview format, she gave him a look that suggested she was just as uncertain as he was about what was coming. Whoopi Goldberg entered the studio with her characteristic presence. But there was something in her expression that Michael couldn't quite read. It wasn't the welcoming smile he had expected, but rather a look of someone who had already made up their mind about something. She barely acknowledged his presence during the pre-show preparations. Instead, focusing intently on her notes and speaking in low tones with the other hosts. As the cameras rolled and the show began, the other hosts, Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, and Sunani Host, offered their usual warm welcomes to Michael. The atmosphere seemed normal as they discussed his career highlights and upcoming projects. Michael felt himself relaxing into the familiar rhythm of promotional interviews, sharing anecdotes about his craft and passion for storytelling. Then came the moment that would change everything. Whoopi, who had been notably quiet during the opening segment, suddenly leaned forward with her intensity that caught everyone off guard. Her voice cut through the comfortable chatter like a blade. "Michael, I have to ask you something that's been bothering me," she said, her tone shifting dramatically from conversational to confrontational. "You've built your career on playing these strong, heroic characters. But I'm wondering if you're just another pretty face who's been handed opportunities because of your looks rather than your talent." The studio fell silent. The other hosts exchanged glances, clearly not expecting this line of questioning. Michael's expression remained composed, but there was a flicker of something, surprise perhaps, or maybe disappointment, that crossed his features. "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?" Michael asked, his voice steady, but with an undertone that suggested he had heard perfectly well the first time. "I think you heard me just fine," Whoopi replied, not backing down. "I've been in this industry for decades, and I've seen plenty of actors who coast on their appearance. Your whole career seems built on being the handsome leading man rather than someone with actual depth or skill." The tension in the room was palpable. Camera operators kept rolling, knowing they were capturing something unprecedented. Michael straightened in his chair, his professional demeanor intact, but his eyes showing a spark of something that hadn't been there moments before. "With all due respect, Whoopi, I think you might be confusing me with someone else," Michael said, his voice carrying a controlled strength. "I've been working in this industry since I was a teenager. I've put in the work, studied the craft, and earned every opportunity I've been given. Have you though?" Whoopi shot back, her voice rising slightly. "Or have you just been fortunate enough to fit the image that Hollywood wants to sell? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been riding on your looks and charm rather than any real substance." The other hosts were visibly uncomfortable now. Joy Behar attempted to interject with a comment about Michael's acclaimed performances, but Whoopi steamrolled right over her. "I'm not finished," Whoopi said sharply, her attention laser, focused on Michael. "You come in here with your perfectly pressed suit and your media-trained answers. But what have you actually contributed to this industry beyond being eye candy for the audience?" Michael's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He had faced difficult interviews before, challenging questions about his work and his industry, but this felt different. This felt personal and deliberately provocative. "I understand you may have opinions about my work," Michael said, his voice remaining remarkably steady despite the attack. "But I'm not going to sit here and let you diminish the years of hard work, the training, the preparation, and the dedication I've put into my craft. That's not just disrespectful to me, it's disrespectful to every actor who has worked hard to earn their place in this industry. Oh, so now you're speaking for all actors. Whoopi's voice dripped with sarcasm. How noble of you. But let's be honest here, Michael. You've been handed roles that other more deserving actors with real struggle and real depth should have gotten. You've benefited from a system that values appearance over authenticity. The studio audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats. This was not the entertaining celebrity interview they had expected to witness. Michael's publicist was making frantic gestures from the sidelines, but Michael seemed to have made a decision about how he was going to handle this unexpected assault. I'm curious about something. Whoopi, Michael said, his tone shifting to match her confrontational energy. What exactly have I done to deserve this kind of treatment? I came here in good faith to talk about my work, to share my passion for storytelling. And instead, I'm being attacked for my appearance and having my credentials questioned by someone who should understand the challenges that actors face in this industry. Don't you dare turn this around on me. Whoopi snapped. I've earned my place here through decades of real work, real struggle, real talent. I didn't get here because someone thought I looked good on a poster. The exchange was escalating rapidly, and the other hosts were clearly out of their depth. Michael leaned back in his chair, his composure still intact, but his eyes now showing a determination that suggested he was done being defensive. You know what, Whoopi? You're absolutely right about one thing, Michael said, his voice carrying a new edge. You have earned your place in this industry, and I respect that. But somewhere along the way, you seem to have forgotten that respect is something that should be mutual. You don't get to tear down other people's accomplishments just because you've decided they don't measure up to your standards. Whoopi's eyes flashed with something dangerous at Michael's words. The mention of mutual respect seemed to strike a nerve that went deeper than anyone in the studio had anticipated. She leaned forward even further, her voice dropping to a tone that was somehow more menacing than when she had been raising it. Mutual respect, she repeated, her voice laced with bitter sarcasm. You think you've earned the right to lecture me about respect? Boy, you have no idea what real struggle looks like in this industry. You've been pampered and coddled your entire career, handed opportunities on a silver platter, while real artists, real performers have had to fight tooth and nail for scraps. The word boy hung in the air like a slap. Michael's entire demeanor shifted. His professional composure, which had remained intact despite the escalating attacks, suddenly showed cracks. His eyes narrowed, and when he spoke, his voice carried a controlled fury that made everyone in the studio take notice. Did you just call me boy? Michael asked, his words measured and deliberate. Because if you did, we need to have a very different conversation right now. I called you what I see, Whoopi shot back, seemingly oblivious to the line she had just crossed. A young man who's been given everything and thinks he deserves praise for it. You want to talk about respect? Show me something worth respecting first. Joy Behar finally found her voice and attempted to steer the conversation back to safer ground. Maybe we should, talk about the actual movie, she said nervously. But both Michael and Whoopi ignored her completely. Let me tell you something, Michael said, his voice rising for the first time since the attack began. I've been working since I was 12 years old. I've auditioned for hundreds of roles, been rejected more times than I can count, and worked my way up from the bottom, just like everyone else. The fact that I've been successful doesn't diminish the work I've put in, and it sure as hell doesn't give you the right to dismiss my achievements or speak to me like I'm some kind of charity case. Oh, please. Whoopi waved her hand dismissively. You think a few auditions and some rejection makes you special. Try being a black woman in this industry for 40 years. Try fighting for every single role. Try being told you're not pretty enough, not thin enough, not marketable enough. You've never faced real adversity, and it shows. Are you seriously trying to gatekeep struggle right now? Michael's voice was incredulous. You don't know anything about my life, about what I've faced, about the challenges I've overcome. Just because my struggles look different from yours doesn't mean they don't exist. Tsunami host tried to interject with a comment about the importance of supporting fellow actors, but Whoopi cut her off with a sharp gesture. Your struggles. Whoopi laughed, but there was no humor in it. What struggles? Being too handsome. Having too many opportunities. Having studios compete for your attention. Please enlighten us about these terrible hardships you've endured. Michael stood up from his chair, his tall frame casting a shadow over the table. The movement was so sudden and decisive that it caught everyone off guard. He wasn't threatening, but his presence was commanding in a way that demanded attention. You know what? I'm done with this, Michael said, his voice carrying a finality that cut through the tension. I came here to talk about my work, about a film that addresses important social issues, about using my platform to make a positive impact. Instead, I'm being attacked by someone who should be supporting the next generation of artists, not trying to tear them down. Sit down, Whoopi commanded, her voice sharp with authority. We're not finished here. Actually, we are, Michael replied, not moving from his position. Because this isn't an interview anymore. This is you using your platform to belittle and demean someone for no reason other than your own bitterness, and I won't be part of it. The studio was dead silent except for the hum of cameras still rolling. Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair while Joy kept glancing between Michael and Whoopi as if watching a tennis match that had turned violent. Bitterness. Whoopi's voice rose to a level that made the sound engineers WR. You think I'm bitter? I'm realistic. I'm honest. I'm telling you the truth that nobody else in this industry has the guts to tell you. You're a product, Michael, not an artist. You're a carefully constructed image designed to appeal to focus groups and maximize box office returns. And you're a has-been who's so threatened by the success of younger actors that you have to attack them on national television to feel relevant again. Michael fired back, his patience finally reaching its breaking point. The words hit Whoopi like a physical blow. Her face went through a series of expressions, shock, rage, and something that might have been hurt before settling into a mask of cold fury. How dare you, she whispered, her voice deadly quiet. How dare you speak to me like that? I am a legend in this industry. I have an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. I've broken barriers that you can't even imagine. I've paved the way for actors like you to exist, and this is how you repay that legacy. Your legacy. Michael's voice was equally quiet, but carried a steel that matched hers. Your legacy right now is attacking a guest on your show for no reason other than your own personal issues. Your legacy is using your platform to tear down instead of build up. Your legacy is showing the world that success and recognition don't automatically make someone a good person. The other hosts had given up any pretense of trying to control the situation. They sat frozen, watching two powerful personalities clash in a way that none of them had ever witnessed before. The studio audience was equally transfixed, some pulling out phones to record, despite the no recording policy. Get out, Whoopi said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Get out of my studio right now. Your studio. Michael's eyebrows rose. This is ABC's studio, Whoopi. You're just an employee here. Same as everyone else. You don't get to kick people out because they won't let you bully them. Security, Whoopi called out, turning toward the production area. I want this man removed from the premises immediately. Michael laughed, but it was a sound devoid of humor. You're really going to call security because someone finally stood up to you? Because someone finally told you that your behavior is unacceptable? I'm calling security because you're being disrespectful and disruptive. Whoopi shot back. You're clearly not mature enough to handle a professional interview. Professional? Michael's voice rose again. You call what you've been doing professional? You've been attacking me personally from the moment you opened your mouth. You've questioned my talent, my work ethic, my worth as a human being. And when I defend myself, you call me disrespectful. Two security guards had appeared at the edge of the set, looking uncertain about what exactly they were supposed to do. Michael noticed them and shook his head with disgust. Don't worry, he said, looking directly at Whoopi. I'm leaving, but not because you're kicking me out. I'm leaving because I have too much respect for myself to continue this conversation with someone who clearly has none for anyone else. He turned to face the cameras directly, his composure returning as he addressed the audience that would eventually see this footage. To anyone watching this, I want you to know that this is not what professionalism looks like. This is not what respectful discourse looks like. This is what happens when ego and bitterness override common decency and human kindness. Whoopi's face contorted with rage at Michael's words to the camera. The idea that he was controlling the narrative, speaking directly to the audience while she sat there, seemed to infuriate her beyond reason. She slammed her hand on the table with such force that the coffee mugs jumped and Joy Behar actually flinched. You don't get to grandstand in my house, Whoopi snarled, pointing an accusatory finger at Michael. You don't get to come on my show, disrespect me, and then act like you're taking the high road. You're nothing but an entitled brat who can't handle criticism. Michael turned back to face her, his expression showing a mixture of disappointment and pity that seemed to cut deeper than any angry retort could have. When he spoke, his voice was calm again, but it carried a weight that made everyone in the studio lean forward to hear him. Criticism, he said, shaking his head slowly. Is that what you call this, Whoopi? Criticism is constructive. Criticism is specific. Criticism is meant to help someone improve or grow. What you've been doing is personal attack disguised as professional commentary. There's a difference. And the fact that you can't see that difference is exactly the problem. Don't you dare try to school me on the difference between criticism and attack. Whoopi shot back, her voice reaching a pitch that made the sound engineers scramble to adjust their levels. I've been giving honest feedback to performers since before you were born. Just because you can't handle the truth doesn't mean I should sugarcoat it for your fragile ego. The truth. Michael's voice carried a note of incredul. The truth is that you don't know me. You don't know my work ethic. You don't know my struggles. You don't know my character. You've made assumptions based on your own biases and prejudices. And when I challenge those assumptions, you double down instead of considering that maybe, just maybe, you might be wrong. Sarah Haynes finally found the courage to speak up. Maybe we should all just take a breath. And she began. But Whoopi whirled on her with such ferocity that Sarah immediately fell silent. Stay out of this, Whoopi snapped. This is between me and him. No, it's not, Michael said firmly. This is happening on a national television show with an audience of millions. This is public. This is being broadcast to people who look up to both of us, who expect us to conduct ourselves with dignity and respect. And right now, only one of us is doing that. The security guards had moved closer, but they seemed uncertain about whether they should actually intervene. Michael noticed their hesitation and addressed them directly. Gentlemen, I appreciate your presence, but I'm not a threat to anyone here. I'm simply a guest who's been subjected to unprofessional treatment and is choosing to leave rather than continue to be disrespected. You're not leaving until I say you can leave, Whoopi declared, her voice carrying a tone of absolute authority that brooked no argument. Michael stared at her for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was so quiet that the entire studio had to strain to hear him. Did you just say that I can't leave until you give me permission? He asked, his tone carrying a dangerous edge. Are you seriously trying to tell a grown man that he needs your permission to walk away from a situation where he's being verbally abused? I'm telling you that you started this confrontation, and you're going to finish it properly. Whoopi replied, seemingly oblivious to how her words were being perceived by everyone else in the room. I started this. Michael's voice rose for the first time since he had stood up. I started this by coming here to promote my work. I started this by answering your questions respectfully. I started this by defending myself when you decided to attack my character and my career. Really, Whoopi? That's the story you're going with? Joy Behar made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Maybe we could all just agree to disagree and move on to talking about the movie, she suggested weakly. There is no movie discussion, Michael said, his eyes never leaving Whoopi's face. There is no interview. There is no professional interaction happening here. There's just a powerful person using their platform to bully someone and then getting angry. When that person refuses to be bullied. Bully. Whoopi's laugh was harsh and bitter. You want to see bullying. Bullying is what I faced every day for decades in this industry. Bullying is being told you're not good enough, pretty enough, marketable enough. Bullying is fighting for scraps while people like you get handed everything on a silver platter. And instead of using your success to make things better for the next generation, you've decided to perpetuate the cycle, Michael replied, his voice heavy with disappointment. You've become the very thing you claim to have fought against. You've become the person who tears others down instead of building them up. The words hit Whoopi like a physical blow. For the first time since the confrontation began, she seemed to falter, her certainty wavering for just a moment, but then her face hardened again, and she leaned forward with renewed venom. You have no idea what you're talking about, she hissed. You have no idea what it takes to survive in this industry, what it takes to earn respect, what it takes to maintain relevance. You think you can just waltz in here with your pretty face and your carefully crafted image and lecture me about how to conduct myself. I think I can expect to be treated with basic human decency, Michael replied. I think I can expect a professional interview environment. I think I can expect that someone with your experience and success would understand the importance of lifting up fellow artists rather than tearing them down. Apparently, I was wrong. He turned to the other hosts, his expressions softening slightly as he addressed them. Joy, Sarah, Sunny, I apologize that you had to witness this. I know this isn't what any of you signed up for when you came to work today. You've been gracious and professional throughout this entire ordeal, and I appreciate that. Then he turned back to Whoopi, his voice carrying a finality that made it clear he was done with the conversation. As for you, Whoopi, I hope someday you'll look back on this moment and realize that you had an opportunity to mentor, to support, to encourage, and instead you chose to attack. I hope you'll understand that your legacy isn't just about the awards you've won or the barriers you've broken, but also about how you've treated people along the way. He began walking toward the edge of the set, but Whoopi's voice stopped him. Don't you dare walk away from me, she called out, her voice cracking slightly. Don't you dare turn your back on me. Michael paused and turned back one final time, his expression showing a sadness that seemed to encompass not just this moment, but something much larger. I'm not turning my back on you, Whoopi, he said quietly. I'm walking away from toxicity. I'm walking away from negativity. I'm walking away from a situation that serves no one and helps nothing. I'm walking away because I have too much respect for myself and too much respect for the people who will see this to continue participating in whatever this has become. He looked directly into the camera one last time, his voice clear and strong. To everyone watching, remember that you have the power to choose how you treat others. You have the power to build people up or tear them down. You have the power to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Choose wisely. With that, Michael B. Jordan walked off the set of The View, leaving behind a stunned studio, a furious Whoopi Goldberg, and a moment that would be talked about for years to come. The cameras kept rolling as Whoopi sat in her chair, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. The other hosts sat in uncomfortable silence, unsure of how to proceed. Finally, Joy Behar cleared her throat and announced that they would be going to commercial break, but the damage was done. The confrontation was over, but the impact would reverberate far beyond the walls of that studio. What do you think about this explosive confrontation? Have you ever witnessed a celebrity interview go this wrong? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of entertainment. The drama never stops.